Before I explain the KonMari method, let me quickly show you what we're working with. This is what my apartment looks like before doing the declutter. There's stuff all over the place, and it feels like I have a lack of control over my space. So with my girlfriend gone on vacation and my apartment to myself, it's time for a one-day declutter to get my space back in order using the KonMari method. If you haven't heard of the method, it's named after its creator, Marie Kondo, who's the author of the best-selling book, The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up. And it's a little bit different than most decluttering methods. Rather than going room by room, you do a one-time, category by category, full declutter, starting with your clothes, then going on to your books, then papers, then miscellaneous, and finally sentimental items. You start by gathering every single item you own in that category into one place, then go through each item one by one and ask yourself, does this spark joy as you hold the item in your hand? If it does, you keep it. If not, you discard it or donate it. So, the first thing we're gonna start with is clothes, which means I need to gather every piece of clothing I own from every corner of my apartment, put them all on my bed. So let me start by making my bed, and then I'll gather all my clothes, go through them one by one, ask, does this spark joy? If it doesn't, it's time to go to Goodwill. One of the things I like about the KonMari method compared to other decluttering methods is that rather than deciding what to get rid of, we decide only what to keep. What is essential to us, what truly makes us happy when we see it. We don't look at an item and say, yeah, I haven't used this, but it was expensive and I probably will want to wear it one day. See, by solely asking ourselves if the item sparks joy, we turn off the logical side of our brains, telling us that it doesn't make sense to get rid of this, and instead only listen to what our emotions are telling us. Those items you keep because maybe one day you'll wear or use them actually end up becoming a burden. Every time you see them, it reminds you of a task that you need to do, or an unfinished project, or the wasted money. But by keeping only what makes us happy when we see it, what sparks joy, we surround ourselves with items that we love and create a space that makes us feel happy and relaxed. Okay, so that's every piece of clothing that I own. Now I'm going to go through each and every one of these and only keep it if it sparks joy. And it's very important that you don't put away any clothes until you've done the full declutter, so you know where each piece of clothing is going to be stored. Got my trash bags here, probably going to need more of these for donations. And it's also important that you go by subcategory. So I'm going to start with tops, then move on to bottoms, and then clothes to hang, and then shoes, then underwear, then bags, and then everything else. Now that I gathered literally every piece of clothing that I own in one place, it's time to go through them one by one and keep what sparks joy. This is the most important part of the KonMari method. You want to take your time with each item. Hold it in your hand, touch it, feel it, and see what emotional response it elicits. And I can tell you, your brain will default to the logical side of things, why it doesn't make sense to get rid of this item, or why you should keep it just in case. But the moment you start focusing on deciding what to throw away versus only what really sparks joy in you, you're veering significantly off course. And you're not just keeping the items that truly make you happy. See, the goal itself isn't to just get rid of as many things as you possibly can. And doing so will likely result in you just buying all those items or all that clutter again. The real goal is to just get rid of the excess, the things that you don't really love. And as I was, you may be wondering, how will I know if something sparks joy? But when you actually hold an item in your hand, take the time to touch it and look at it, you'll know. Trust me. See, like many people, I've been fighting against clutter my entire life. I was always someone that had way too much. I would over-prepare or keep things laying around just in case. I would always buy in bulk because it would save me money. And it wasn't until my senior year of college, as always, it took way more time to move all my stuff than any of my roommates. And one of my friends asked, why do you have so much stuff? Do you really need all of this? Shout out to Ford, first of all, but my first reaction was to get defensive. Yes, I need all this stuff. This was my stuff. After all, I needed it, right? And then I started thinking, started questioning, did I really need all this stuff? And as I thought about it, really thought about it, and looked around at all my stuff, I realized that the answer was no. I didn't need all of it. In fact, just by having so many things, so much clutter, and so many possessions to keep track of and store, I was creating more stress in my life. Rather than adding to my life with these items, I was taking away from it. I took my hoodie off, getting warm. Time to move on to the stuff that hangs. Time to move on to the stuff that hangs. We're gonna go through, see what sparks joy, keep what does, get rid of the rest. See, the thing about clutter is it's not just physical. When your space isn't in order, neither is your mind or your thoughts. Having things around you that you don't love, things that are a reminder of uncompleted tasks, or things you want to try but never got to, they weigh on you, whether you notice it or not. And it is only by getting rid of all this excess, all these possessions that you don't need, that you realize what impact they really had on you in the first place. Having a messy space leads to a messy life. And obviously we get busy, life throws things at us, but when you use something like the KonMari method to put your space in order, you do it once and then never again. It doesn't take space and energy every day to stay in order. It shouldn't. You simply just continue to put things where they belong, the space that you designated for those specific items. And if done correctly, your life should never become cluttered again. And that's my goal with this whole thing. See, I had my space in order, but when I moved, things got busy, I started buying things, and I never really got the chance to set my space in order again. That's why I chose to do this declutter in the first place. I felt it weighing on me. And if you're watching this video and this far in, maybe you can relate. See, what happens is you let busyness run the show for a while. Life gets in the way. It throws things at you. But when you choose to declutter, get rid of things, and put your space back in order, it's your way of saying, no, I'm in control. I'm realizing after doing one pass through that I didn't actually get rid of that much stuff. And it's because I'm not actually asking myself if it sparks joy. I've just been seeing if it's practical and if I like it and if I want to keep it. But that's not how you do the KonMari method. You need to see if it actually sparks joy when you pick up the item. So, gonna go through a bunch of this stuff again and only keep it if it sparks joy. Like many people, I was finding it very difficult to part with certain items. Things that I had bought and never worn, things that were expensive, things that I had just recently acquired. But it wasn't until this second pass through that I realized I wasn't actually using the does this spark joy criteria. I was still trying to logically justify why I should keep each and every item. And it was only when it didn't make logical sense that I got rid of it. See, getting rid of things isn't easy. There's a reason that the order is clothes, books, papers, miscellaneous, and then sentimental items. It's because it's in order of difficulty. If you were to start with sentimental items, you would get rid of nothing. But by starting with clothes, it's like warming up. You're getting used to asking yourself if things spark joy, getting used to looking at something and noticing your emotional response to it. And it may take multiple pass-throughs, like it did for me, to get used to that. And as I did this second pass-through, I got rid of a lot more stuff, things that didn't spark joy. That's it for clothes, and now it's time to put all the clothes away. Okay, now that I've finished discarding all of my clothes, it's time for storage. And it's absolutely essential that you completely finish discarding all of a specific category before you even think about storing the items. When you do things in this order, it allows you to truly focus on the item and your emotional response, rather than turning on the logical side of your brain and thinking, oh, I could put this here, there's a space for this item over there, and then keeping it when it doesn't spark joy. But when you completely finish discarding and then start with storage, you give each item that you truly love a home where it belongs. And just by doing that, you'll find yourself always putting items back into their homes when you finish using them, which is what prevents you from relapsing and cluttering up your life again. So it's absolutely essential to completely finish discarding an entire category before you begin storage. Now, the other thing about storage is that once you get really good at it, you can hide things from yourself, which is why it's essential to get every single item of one category into one place before you start putting things away. You need to see how much you actually have. what you've been hiding from yourself this whole time, which is exactly what we don't want to do again. Don't become a storage expert. You want to be able to see all of your items all the time. Part of this is the way you store the items themselves. When you store your clothes, you want to fold them into thirds and then put them horizontally next to each other, rather than just putting them into big piles and shoving them into your dresser. This not only looks much more tidy and helps prevent wrinkles, it allows you to see all of your clothes all of the time, rather than being able to hide the things that you don't want to see and that don't spark joy. I'll put a link below on how to fold like this if you're interested in learning. This is what a dresser looks like after using that method of folding and storing. You can see things neatly folded into thirds, stored, so when I open my drawers, I can see every single item in there. Nothing is hiding. And now clothes are done, fully put away, and it's time to move on to items. I'm going to skip over books, and it's because I only have around 15 books total, and they all have a home already. They're all tidy and put away. So I've decluttered my books many times before, and I pretty much exclusively buy my books on Kindle, so I don't actually have that many in the first place, and they're all neatly put away somewhere. I also chose to combine miscellaneous and sentimental items, as I don't have very many of each, so it's easier to do all of them at once. So as I continue to declutter my items, let's talk about the science of decluttering, specifically using the KonMari method. A study that came out in 2021 by researchers Lucy Chamberlain and Asa Calmer looked at the impact of the KonMari method on two things: people's acquisition of new things and their well-being. They surveyed 632 total participants across Sweden, the UK, and Ireland, and conducted 33 interviews. Here's what they found. First, they found that around 95% reported changed attitudes towards buying. Impulse buying dropped from around 50% pre-KonMari method to around 2% post-KonMari method. They also found that the ritual of holding each item and seeing if it sparks joy deepened their connections with the items that they kept and made it easier to let things go. They also found that this joy-based mindset extended to their time use, their finances, and relationships. Why can't you get rid of the things that don't spark joy in your relationships? Or they also found that this joy-based mindset extended to their time use, their finances, and their relationships, helping them to simplify and declutter their lives in other areas than just physical possessions. They also found that cleaning time cut from an average of 5 hours to around 1.5 hours a week. And finally, they found that the participants had reduced anxiety, clearer headspace, and boosted confidence after doing the KonMari. So some pretty good findings to back up the KonMari method. I'll leave a link in the description if you want to check out the study for yourself. So at the time of this voiceover, it's been around a week since I finished my declutter, and I've noticed a few things that have shifted in my life. First, living in a clutter-free space, I've been much more relaxed and at ease, and I find it easier to focus on my work. I've also found that my focus has started to shift from material possessions more towards moments and experiences that I'm in. And I'm less distracted by material possessions. I don't really feel the need to go shopping or go on Amazon and look for things that I quote unquote want or need, so I know I'm surrounded by things only that I love, and bringing things into that space, things I don't need, will just create excess and clutter that I don't need. And in Marie Kondo's book, The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up, she talks about how if you live with other people, rather than patronizing them for having too much stuff or trying to get rid of their stuff or telling them they need to declutter, the best thing you can do for your space is declutter your own stuff. And they'll see that, and a lot of the time they will follow suit and do a declutter of their own. And I was a bit skeptical of this at first, and my girlfriend by no means lives a cluttered lifestyle. But after she returned, she saw how cleanly my closet looked and my dresser. She actually ended up doing a big declutter herself, and now our space is a lot cleaner, a lot more minimal, and overall a lot more relaxing. We're surrounded by items that we love. So if the KonMari method is something that you're interested in doing for your own life, I'll leave a link below to Marie Kondo's website where she breaks down the KonMari method step by step. Now let me show you the results of my one-day declutter. This is the pile of all of the stuff that I got rid of during the one-day declutter. So pretty good for one day. And this is what my apartment looks like now. This is the kitchen. You can see how tidy it looks. Once again, these are all the items that I got rid of. So pretty good. This is what the bedroom looks like. In my closet, you can see how tidy my closet looks now. Not a lot of storage, not a lot of things hiding. These are my shoes. As we continue, this is what the hallway looks like. This cord is going to be tucked away behind that shoe rack, so don't mind that. Come in my office. See how good my office looks. There's the bookshelf. There's my seat. I have this chair that I'm trying out and my squat rack thing over there. So it looks pretty good. If you enjoyed this video, I also made a video about the minimalist rule that changed my life. You can click here to check that out. Or if you want to do a 20-minute declutter your closet along with me, you can click here to check that out. Thanks for watching, and peace.